Hey there YouTube, GameSlayer here. You know, it's actually an interesting experience to play a game that claims that it will pay the player to play the game. On the one hand, if it's a good game, I get paid to play it. On the other hand, if it's a bad game, I get to come on here and say that they couldn't pay me to play the game. It's really kind of a win-win for me. The game I am reviewing today is called Dungeons and Treasures, and it leaves little doubt as to what the game will be about. Dungeons. And also treasures. It's kind of right there in the title. See right there in the right... okay, moving on. The game itself is basically a dungeon crawler, but also a browser game, which of course means that every time you take a step, you have to wait for the page to load. This could land you anywhere between slightly annoying to game-breaking, depending on how slow your internet is, since obviously a slower internet means a longer wait between steps. That isn't the only thing slowing down your dungeon crawling experience, though. On each page, there's a chance for a helmet to appear, which, when clicked, tells you all about how awful you are at leading an army. No, actually, this is part of the click contest, which... each time you click, something random happens, either failing horribly at every task, or killing a certain number of enemy soldiers. Killing enemy soldiers gives you tickets which can be scratched off to get points. And any event could give you a mission which you can use to get more points if you joined an army which costs 1,000 gold coins. Well, whoa, hold on. You have to pay? You seriously have to pay the army to let you fight for them? What kind of army works like that? That aside, there are two other minigames which involve these armies, aside from the click contest. Bow and Balloons, and Bow and Castle. It says I should play the tutorial first, so let's go ahead and check that out. Alright, time to hit the target. Okay, my arrow clearly hit that. Look, it hit again. Do you see this? Every single time my arrow is clearly landing directly in the middle of the target. How am I supposed to hit the target if the arrow's not... Oh! It's not where the arrow lands that counts. You have to make the arrow line up with the target on the spot where it starts to fall, because obviously arrows deal damage when they're only halfway to their target. So now that I actually know how to hit my target, it's time to play Bows and Balloons. Basically, you just have to shoot the balloons in order to make them sink downward so that your army can steal their cargo. This game reduces the score of one army and increases the score of your army depending on how well you do. And no, in this case my video capture is not lagging. The game actually runs this slowly. Next up is the Bow and Castle game. In this game you have to fight off the world's most retarded army as they attempt to run sideways along the castle and presumably wander off somewhere and get lost because no matter how many get past you, the castle never falls. This game is a little bit harder than the other because there are more targets, allies that reduce your score when hit, and they all move faster. Strangely though, even though there are a lot more moving parts, it lags considerably less than the balloon game. There are at least a dozen other minigames and contests, but most of them are even more simplistic or require you to gamble your coins or stars. Stars being mainly a reward for donating. So let's get back to the namesake of the game, the dungeons. Or should I say, dungeon. Every day you get one randomly generated dungeon to explore, and within these dungeons you can find various treasures. Mostly potions, gold pieces, and sometimes keys for the chest room, and the occasional weapon or piece of armor, which do not remotely work the same way they do in normal RPGs. Weapons and armor each have a universal plus stat. The higher the number, the better they are, and some of them also have plus stats in specific elements or monster types which make them more effective in relation to those specific elements or monsters. Weapons seem to increase your attack skill, while armor seems to increase your defense skill, which each increase your odds of either landing a hit or not being hit. At least, that is the theory. See, the exact values for accuracy, damage, and protection are hidden, so these plus stats are more like vague hints more than actual stats. As well, instead of having hit points, you have wounds, of which you can have 5 total before dying. At first, I thought this would make combat more difficult due to the risk of being hit while drinking potions, but I gotta hand it to these guys. They have the absolute most polite, bloodthirsty monsters I have ever seen. They absolutely do not mind at all if you take a break in the middle of fighting to chug down a few potions to get your life back, and will not attack you while you are distracted. There's also a magic system which is more or less completely useless. You can't use magic until you reach level 10, which means you're going to rely on increasing your attack stat and having a strong sword in order to get you there. Once you have level 10, you can switch to using magic, but instead of having an actual magic stat to put points into, you have to put points into specific elements in order to use their specific attacks. Plus, each spell can only be used once, so when your stack of spells run out, you can't use magic until you randomly find more spells in the dungeon of the right type, or spend your gold buying spells from the magic shop. And look at this! My spell failed, but I missed? What does that mean exactly? Can my spell fail and then still hit the target? I doubt it. Combat is pretty simple though. You just pick a weapon to attack with and go. You can run away or dodge, but I never really had to do either of those things. There's no need to. You get like a whole cart full of potions every time you explore a new dungeon. There is a bit of a translation problem with the game. I swear, when I first started playing, when you attack, it would say your character gives a sword. You would think, if they're going to port a game to an English version, it might be to their best benefit to, I don't know, hire a native speaker to make sure everything looks right, but nope. They ran this thing through Babelfish and said, "Looks good! Our work here is done." Actually, I don't know how they translated it, but the Google translation of their French site is actually more readable than their English site half the time. On a related note, the monsters all seem to have been strangely named as well. For instance, zombies are now zalmies, skeletons are now squeletons. Yeah, I'm so scared. No, really, look at my character. He's actually scared of this thing. And what the fuck is this thing? It looks like some sort of crotch-headed donkey dragon. Finally, let's talk about the dungeon crawling. What a mess. There's a reason level design in most dungeon crawlers are deliberate and not simply completely randomly generated. Even the Diablo series works through randomized rooms linked together rather than assigning every single floor tile randomly. Keys in this game work much like in real life. They go to one door and one door only, which can actually lead to really bad things in this sort of environment. One time, I had explored most of the dungeon, but there were still about 6 doors left unopened, and I had 1 key. While most of the time, keys go to doors near where they are found, in this case, I had to walk back and forth across the entire dungeon to try the key on every door until I could go through one. 4 of these doors only led to single rooms containing nothing more than a key to another door all the way across the dungeon again. Another time, I opened a door, went through, and on the other side was another locked door. Sometimes you get lucky and have an interesting dungeon design that is actually decent to play through, but just as often, you have a dungeon that requires you to trek back and forth through already explored and empty areas of the dungeon that it's just more tedious and time-consuming than anything else, And all the while, every time you check the map for the nearest door, the game acknowledges your troubles and offers to let you teleport if you pay them real money. Yes, it's a real mark of a noble game designer when they find bad design in their game and offers to let you pay them to get around it. So how much do you get paid for playing, by the way? Well, I looked that up and it appears you get 0.225 DT for every 100,000 gold you have on hand at the end of the month when the game restarts. 1 DT equals 0.7 euro, which translates to roughly $1, so you essentially need somewhere between 400,000 and 500,000 gold to get $1 a month. The middle range of the top players list is about 300,000 gold, so the typical player won't even earn $1 a month. Given that they actually require you to earn $5 before you cash out, the game doesn't really pay the players. So, given that the dungeon design is extremely subpar, the combat system is convoluted and really just boring, and, well, really, the entire game is just boring and time-consuming. That's it. So, I cannot recommend this game in any fashion. And trust me, I do try really hard to find somebody who would like the game and recommend it to them. In this case, no, I can't. There is no group of people who would enjoy this. There are better dungeon crawlers out there. Any dungeon crawler, almost. Just, no. This one, no. I'm GameSlayer. And if you found this useful, or if you like this video, go ahead and click like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. And if you have any comments, be sure to comment and post below.